Hi, my name is Emily Iannelli, and as you can see, I have my little friend here. She's a companion of mine. Um, I remember when I found her in a novelty shop. I wanted to, you know, I felt kind of like a connection. She's a Beanie Baby. There was a time when Beanie Babies were like very popular, so she's my little companion. And I'm gonna put her in my car, like I had in the old car. So, yeah, I'm supposed to have surgery in September this year, 2019, and it's been a long process. I started my transition back in March of 2012, and I didn't know what to expect on my transition through male to female. You know, I watched YouTube videos. I went on different websites just to kind of gain insight into what would be the reason why a male would want to become a female. I knew my dilemma and my situation, but you can't equate my situation with other transgender girl patients or transgender male patients. You really can't. We're all different. We're all unique. And we're all going through life with certain experiences. Now, though our circumstances may be different, there are a lot of similarities with transgender people, male to female or female to male. Doesn't really matter. But the common denominator usually is that they do not feel comfortable in their body, basically. They don't like presenting in society uncomfortably. And I know from my own experiences, I had a very difficult time going out and presenting as a male, where going to school, I'd have to wear like, a pair of pants and a shirt, like an Oxford shirt. And that wasn't me, that wasn't who I was. And when I went to Catholic school, we had uniforms. So we really didn't have a choice with clothing. We wore uniforms. I used to wear gray flannel pants, a white shirt, and depending on what grade you were in, if you were in 1 to 3, you'd wear the red tie, and if you were in grades 4 to 4, 4 to I guess 8th grade, I don't remember, because I never finished my parochial school education. But let's say, for argument's sake, 1 to 4 with the red tie, and then 4 through 8 with the blue tie. That makes more sense. And that was it. And then the girls would wear rompers. Red romper if they were in the lower grade levels, and blue romper if they were in the higher grade levels, obviously with a blouse and a little cross-button tie. And I used to feel like I was out of place growing up. Like things weren't really normal for me, and I isolated from people. I didn't really know how to relate, boys or girls. I kind of was a loner, not by choice, but more because I was trying to figure out who I was as a person, and that's not an easy thing when you're confused and you're growing up and you have nobody to talk about it with, so I was all on my own basically, and I didn't know what to do. and I was suffering from depression, even though it was never diagnosed. And I had to, go through this all by myself. And I like most transgender girls, they go through this period where they dress up, they explore their femininity by wearing girls' clothes if they have access to it. I have two sisters, but I'm the oldest, so I knew when I was roughly three or four, my earliest recollection of wanting to explore feminine clothing. So obviously my sister was really young, so I really couldn't explore with her clothing unless she had plus size clothing, so I really didn't have the opportunity to really dress, but I had this interest in wanting to dress, and I would try, because I'm young, so young, like 3 or 4, that my memory isn't so good, but I have this remembrance of when I discovered my mom's clothing closet, that I was kind of drawn to it when I saw her dresses and her outfits, and I knew that I wanted to dress like that from a very young age. So obviously growing up was difficult for me because I didn't feel comfortable in boys' clothing. Things that helped me though get through was my involvement in baseball, Little League. My dad and I would have a catch when I was in my, around 7 or 8. And then my neighbor's brother was into baseball, and he was 11th grade, I guess, or 12th grade. And he saw me with my dad, and he came up and he said, "Look, I think that you would benefit if you went into Little League baseball." And he gave me a name of a contact, and he had my dad call and inquire, and it was about the Little League baseball team for kids between the ages of 6 and 12 or 13. And I told my dad maybe we should try it. So we met with the organizer, and I spoke, and even my friend came down with us, the neighbor, and he said this young man wants to play Little League, and my father was with me, and that's how I got involved in Little League baseball. And I'm so happy that I did, because it taught me things, and I discovered that I was pretty good at it. They put me at shortstop or second base, and I was able to field. I was competent. Actually, I had a natural ability. And then I also was a good contact hitter. I got on base. I was hesitant when it came to trying to steal bases, but I was good at getting on base, and I was good in the field. I remember high pop-ups hit, and I would know how to surround where the ball was coming, and I kept my eye on it, and I would make a great catch. And it gave me a lot of confidence, and I actually enjoyed it. And then people my age group were like, "Wow, you can play, you're good." So I was excited, and I was making friends. This was the first time I really had friends. I mean, when I was going to parochial school, I talked to people, not much, But I also started to notice girls too, even though I was so young. And I found that they were more like sensitive, cute, they wore nicer clothes, and they just seemed much more understanding, and smart. And I was drawn to that. And I remember I had a crush in kindergarten on a girl who was English. I went to public school for kindergarten, and her family moved from England to the U.S. And I thought she was cute. And then I had another girl in my first grade class. Diane was the girl I liked in kindergarten, and then Karen was the girl I liked in the first grade. And then I remember carrying on a conversation with her, and I got in trouble by the nun. And she kind of embarrassed me, so I never talked to girls really anymore after that, because I was really shy and scared. But I knew when I was young that I felt more like a girl than I did as a guy. And even though I was involved in sports, and I was into, doing what boys do. I acted like a boy. I blended into society like a boy. I was treated like a boy. Nobody questioned me. They didn't say, "Oh, you're a faggot" or anything like that, because I was a boy, basically, growing up, just like any other typical boy. But nobody knew what was going on inside of me. They didn't know what was up here. But I knew, but there was nobody I could reach out to, nobody I could talk to, and that's what made it difficult. And that's why I isolated and withdrew. And when I got older, I would experiment wearing girls' clothes, and I found it helpful to me. It was a big part of my life. And, this all, throughout all of my school days in Brooklyn, and carried through when I moved to Long Island. I was going into the 6th grade, so I was around 13 or so, 12 or 13. And, I was wearing school clothes that was consistent to public school. So you could wear any kind of shirt and pants for boys, and girls could wear dresses or whatever. So I wore things that were appropriate for boys. So it helped me. I mean, it didn't help me. I realized this is what it was supposed to be. Even though I was disappointed and I couldn't really identify as how I felt. And it was a lifelong struggle, I couldn't do anything about it. And as the years gone by, I kept, this thing kept coming back to me, like, this desire to live as a female. And then when I was like in my like 16, 17, when I was running cross country after being recruited, that helped me because I was participating in sports, and sports seemed to help me, and I was also doing good in my education. So I was managing well despite my gender conflict. And also my mom was sick. She had a lot of mental struggles, and she was very depressed, and she had problems also. And it was hard, I couldn't talk to my mom because of all her problems. And my dad was too busy working. He was an iron worker, and it was very difficult for the family. I had 2 sisters, but we did our own things. We didn't really relate. My 2 sisters were more closer to each other than I was. So I was trying to figure out my life, and I was alone, You know, I had dreams. You know, I wanted to do things, and I was good in math and science. So I thought a career in that field of math and science would be helpful to me. And then with the sports, it gave me good moral character, and it was helpful to me, and it helped me, and I made good friends, and it really got me through. College days, no different. I couldn't dress the way I felt comfortable. I wore guy clothes, and I had college uh, pursuits. I wanted to do well so I could move on to the next level. I was in a junior college or a community college. You know, I studied engineering, and then I went on to Virginia Tech, and then wound up coming home to Hofstra, where I studied accounting. Then I started my career, you know, and I cross-dressed but underneath my male clothes. And then I got to go out with some of my guy friends, and we'd go out to the nightclubs and do things that typical boys and guys did, scoping out girls and admiring them. And you know, most of my guy friends were shy like I was, so we didn't have much success with girls. You know, and I would wind up being like at the back of the wall, hanging out, just you know, just watching all the pretty girls and seeing them dancing or talking to other guys or girls. And I felt sad because I couldn't join in. You know, I felt like I was isolated. And it was uncomfortable being around my friends because we were all the same. Like, and all we did was just hang out and do the same thing. None of us really had the ability to feel confident to approach girls. And so I knew that that was a very difficult thing for me. And then after graduation, I went to work. I worked in accounting. I worked and I got married, and we had a son. We have a son, and you know, I worked hard. You know, I was dedicated to my profession, just like I was dedicated to my schooling and sports participation. And then things got hard because my mom got sick, and she was in and out of hospitals, and she was diagnosed with depression, paranoia, schizophrenia. So she was in and out of hospitals. And my dad was working in a stressful job, and he would, every time he'd come home, he'd be at the hospital. And it was depressing, you know. And then my sisters and I, when we were old enough, we would go and visit my mom in the hospital. And it was sad. And then, you know, for me to escape that pain, I'd wind up going to the mall and I'd buy a dress because I had some money then, and dresses helped me cope. And I would wear my dresses, but in, you know, privacy. And I felt comfortable. I felt like I was supposed to be wearing dresses. So, you know, I could go on about this, but the truth of the matter is I always identified as a girl. I pretended to be male, even though it wasn't what was within me. I was never treated any differently than any other guy. Nobody had a suspicion that I was feminine or desiring to live as a girl. So basically, I guess I got through, and I made the way through my whole life where people didn't even question my gender or my sexuality. You know, they just thought I was a shy person. You know, I was like that with the guys on the cross-country team. I was like that in my classrooms. I was just very shy, and especially with girls. So I managed, though, to get through college, high school, the awkwardness of teenagehood, when you go through puberty. And I had some tragedies along the way. I lost my mom in 1990, and I was 29. She was 50. and it was basically due to her mental illness. And then my dad was very loyal to my mom. He'd always be at the cemetery putting flowers out. He never dated after that. And he went through a lot. And he started drinking. But he was drinking younger too because of some unfortunate accidents on his job. But being transgender is a real battle. Just like depression. And I have both. I am transgender, and I have depression, and I have a son who's on the autistic spectrum. And I lost my dad to suicide when he was 73. He just couldn't take life anymore. So he went to the train station and he took his life. And it was horrible. I remember when my sisters sent their husbands to talk to me and tell me what was going on, and it was horrible. I just couldn't believe it. And then my friend was very instrumental. I used to work at a CPA firm, and I would always go to one of the clients in Connecticut, and we became good friends. And he was tremendous. He helped me get through this depression. He was the first one to call when he realized that my dad had died. And he was one who helped me get through that. And he was really good. He was a good friend to me. And he was really the only friend I had in a professional working relationship. And I enjoyed his company. And then sadly 2 years later he died. He died in his sleep. He was only 40. Left behind a wife and a daughter. And his daughter was only like 2 or 3 years old. So it was very sad. And I felt so depressed. And then when I came home, I wanted to get the little girl some things because we used to have, we used to exchange gifts at Christmas time. My friend and I, because he knew my son, so he would get like a box of DVD sets, and I would buy the girl like little dolls and plush toys, and the mother gave me her dress size, so I would buy some little dresses for her, and it was fun. We had a great friendship. But then he died, and I was at his funeral, and he died. My dad died in 2009. So he died in 2011. So I was 50. I was 50 years old. I was 50 when I had to deal with this. With my dad's suicide, and then my friend's death, premature. He's only 40. And that sent me into a tailspin. I was depressed. And I realized that I have to do something. And I knew all along that I was struggling with my gender. And I was 50 now. I wanted to transition earlier. I wanted to transition in my 20s, my 30s and 40s, but never could. And now I'm 50, and I say if I don't do it now, I'll never do it. So that's when I started the process. And I found out through a website I used to go to that Calum Lord in New York City was a great place to go to get hormones for your gender identity. So I met with the doctor, I made an appointment, and I spoke to her about my situation. And she believed me after she saw me in a dress underneath my business suit, my male attire. And she realized that I was most likely trans. And she said, before I put you on hormones, I need to evaluate you for the next 3 months. And then once the 3 months came up, she realized that I should be on female hormones. So she put me on estradiol and spironolactone, and I've been taking it ever since. She put me on that on June of 2012, So that's basically when I started hormones. And then I had trouble to transition on the job, and it was difficult for me because I had to come out. And I never had to come out like this before. It was like the biggest deal for me that I had to come out. And I didn't know, because how am I going to all of a sudden say I want to live as a woman, you know? It's not easy. So I did speak to the HR, the woman. They had a small department because it was just a small family operation. And they did a lot of work in nuclear waste containment. And I was one of the accountants. I was actually the assistant controller. And they were going to work with me in my transition. They just wanted me to do it slow, at a slow pace. And I don't know, I didn't know what controls, what timetables once I'm on hormones. I had no idea, because this was the first time I was transitioning. So I said, you know, I have no control over that. But they were willing to work with me. But the CPA from the partner where I used to work, because this was his account, you know, he was the CPA running this account, he convinced them that I shouldn't stay because of the fact that it would be a disruption to the company. So I was talked into taking a job in the city, working for a doctor's office. I'm sorry, my son is going a little crazy. He's autistic, he shouts loud. He is not a friendly kid sometimes. He's rude. I love my son, but he has no controls. And it's like this all throughout life. It's been like this, you know? And I need a break from that. You know, I hate autism. You know, I hate being transgender. I hate autism. I hate being transgender. I hate depression. I hate alcoholism. I hate mental illness. But unfortunately, these are issues that we had to deal with in our family. You know, and transgender is an issue I had to deal with. Autism is an issue my son has to deal with. And he's not making improvement. He's 20. And he's got no idea what he wants to do, you know, and it seems like we're going to have to put him in a group home, and that's affecting me psychologically. I just experienced a terrible car accident where my car was totaled, and now I'm having an investigation done on it, and my insurance company is, you know, paying off the loan, and then I have gap insurance, but this is all making me worried. Because I know for a fact, even though they encouraged me to buy another car, I leased, they encouraged me to continue driving. But God knows I have no idea what my premiums are going to be. So it's scaring me, you know, and I'm nervous, and I'm thinking and my mortgage went up. So my income is the same, but my expenses are, you know, increasing. So, you know, I've had a hard time before the increases with my income, and now I have to stretch out my income and afford these expenses that are increasing, you know, and God knows how much my auto insurance premiums are going to increase too. There may become a time where I'm going to have to give up driving altogether because I simply can't afford the premiums. So this is heavily on my mind. And now I got a surgery date of September 10th, you know, and being that I'm going through all of this, you know, everything is still on. I'm not saying that I'm not ready for it. I mean, because this is going to be my 6th try. And they usually say 3 times you're out. In my case, it'll be 6 times I'm out. Because I postponed it 5 times due to many various reasons. Like I was in a hospital in a psychiatric unit, or I was severely depressed, or I tried to detransition from female back to male, and that was a disaster. I was trying to, you know, do something for my son because he misses his dad, So I went through a lot, mentally and emotionally. But now that it's approaching, and this is going to be the 6th try, and now I'm going through all this other mental anguish with the car and just not knowing what's going to happen. So it's very much a worry for me. But I look at this surgery in two ways. I look at it as something that I've wanted ever since I was young. I'm not brainwashed into doing the surgery. This is something that I've always needed to do, always felt I had to do. You know, I was never talked into doing the surgery. This is just something that I always knew at some point in my life I would have to deal with. I didn't know what age I would be dealing with it, but I knew I would have to confront it one day. Even if I got married and have a child, which I do. I have a wife and a son. But I always knew in the back of my head I would have to confront this. Because once you're transgender, you're always transgender. There's no cure for it. Gender dysphoria. You know, the hormones help me, you know, and I am expecting that the surgery to go well and hopefully no complications. But it's coming, it's around the corner now. And I need to make sure all my paperwork is in, which the letters were assured to me that they will be there and ready and be furnished to insurance company, and the doctor notes and my history. So that's going to be all communicated to the health insurance company. And I have the primary as my wife's, Emblem, United Healthcare, and my secondary is Medicare. So I'm hoping that most of my my surgery costs and anesthesia costs and the hospital stay and the recovery will all be covered mostly under the insurance, because I have enough medical expenses over the years. I have debts now. I have a loan. A lease on a car. Now I may have to owe money on the car. That was declared a total loss, even though it's covered under insurance. So I got my head in all different directions, and I'm worried about my son's situation. So it's hard to have clear focus to doing such an important surgery. And it's a complex surgery from male to female, you know, because they change your male genitals down south to resemble female genitals. So essentially they kind of reshape the male anatomy down there to resemble a female anatomy. So, and then I know that there's going to be recovery time, which they're saying maybe 3 months, and it's also going to require maintenance. So when you have surgery from male to female and they create a vagina for you, you need to use these dilators or whatever they call them, and you're supposed to use them to keep your opening from closing, because according to my doctors, they said that the body assumes that that is a wound and it will try to heal based on that. But now I have to be psychologically effective, and I need to really be focused and have positive mental outlook, and I need to be comfortable, you know, because it is going to be a serious surgery, and they're concerned about my mental well-being. But everything's set. I'm going for a pre-test. I'm working with Mount Sinai, and I have a good doctor, Dr. Purohit, who works in conjunction with Dr. Jess Ting and Dr. Marcy Bowers, and I believe a doctor from Russia, who's expert at male to female transgender surgeries. So it's only like a month away, even less. So if everything works out and the insurance approves it, I'll be going under the knife. And I just hope that everything works out. That's all I can hope for. You know, despite my depression, this dealing with the car, you know, dealing with other family-related matters, it's going to be a struggle. Plus, I'm going to have to stay home for the duration of the 2 or 3 months, not doing much. So depression will probably set in. I'm not trying to look at the negatives, but these are things that I'm going to have to face. So I have to be strong mentally, and I have to try my best to deal with it as best I can. And, you know, if worse comes to worse and I'm not ready for it and I have to cancel it, which I don't want to do, I'm hoping that I will go through with it and everything will work out. But I can't take too much more of these hardships with my son, with the car situation, with money worries. It's just, things are really scaring me. So I have to be strong. I have to have faith in myself. And I have to believe that things will be okay. You know, things will be okay with my son. Things will be okay with my car situation. I do have a car, but I'm talking about like the insurance. I'm talking about this investigation, because I believe there was something wrong with my accelerator and I had no control of it, and I couldn't even stop the car with the brakes. So if I didn't swerve around from the car in front of me, plus there was a car behind me, if I was unable to swerve and I just went straight, I would have hit him directly at 40 miles an hour, and it would have been catastrophic. I'm talking about fatalities. But luckily I swerved to my right, you know, and this is all happening in nanoseconds, you know, like, you know, I'm trying to figure out how I reacted the way I did, but it was like instinct, you know, because if you know you're either going to go straight and crash directly into a car at 40 miles an hour, you obviously don't want to do that. So I swerved to my right at a relatively fast speed. I'm lucky my car didn't flip over. Then I hit a curb, and then I went slightly airborne and crashed into trees and a fence. And there must have been some bushes around there, because somehow it brought my car to a stop, you know. And going 40 miles an hour crashing into a tree could have been deadly too. So when I was right before impact, I felt this is the end for me. I literally felt that this is the end. And the last image I had was my son. And I was literally bracing to die. I've had other friends who died in car accidents, so it's not unusual to die in a car accident. So I was literally bracing for my death, and I thought I'd be another car accident victim. But at least I wouldn't have killed anybody else. Because if I killed somebody else, and let's say I survived, I wouldn't be able to live with myself, you know? So thank God that didn't happen, but my car was a total loss. And when I went there to clear out the contents, I finally got the nerve to get a rental car after my claims manager talked me into it. I cried when I saw my car. It was very hard to see that. And I couldn't realize the extent of the damages. I told my psychiatrist about it, but he still thinks that I should go forward with the surgery. unless something drastically happens. But he's on board with me going through the surgery, and I think I'll be okay. I think I'll have some nervous jitters before surgery, but I have a lot of faith in the team and in Mount Sinai's program. And I know other friends who've went through that program and they are doing well. They're happy with their results. A couple of my male to female transgender women friends already have boyfriends and they're having intercourse and things like that. But that's not what I want. I just want to have the feelings of a woman. I've lived with hardly any sex my whole life. I'm glad I'm grateful though that we have my son. But sex to me really wasn't like a driving force in my life. I was lucky if I had it a half a dozen times. So I'm not having the surgery to have sex, I'm having it for me and me alone, not doing it for anyone else. I just want to be happy, And my surgery isn't going to be a miracle thing. It's not going to change my problems. I'm always going to have my problems. That's never going to go away. I'm always going to be worried about the mortgage, worried about my son. So I'm not deluding myself like this is the cure-all, because it's not. And there's going to be a lot of traumatic changes once I do the surgery, and a lot of maintenance for the rest of my life. So I really have to be there emotionally and mentally. And right now, thinking that I'm going to go through with it, and if I don't, I think I'll be very depressed. So it's a catch-22, just like some other things in my life. And we're having our 40-year high school reunion, but if I go through with the surgery, I'm not going to be able to attend. Simple as that. So I'll keep you abreasted as the surgery date comes closer and my feelings about it. Hopefully everything with my car will resolve itself favorably, and my son's situation isn't going to improve overnight. It's going to take a long time. So that, as time goes on, I hope will also get better for him and for us. And just trying to keep up with life, trying to do the best I can. Sure, I have disappointments in my life. There are things that I wish I could have done, or there were mistakes I made that I wish I could undo. It's nothing to do with my family. It's more like things like, I wanted to be an engineer, and I had too much difficulty, and then I changed my course of study, and and there are lots of things I wish I could do, and I can't, because money is a barrier. And I hate living like this, worrying monthly about your bills, waiting patiently for your money to come in, and that you can barely cover all your bills. That's hard, and I'm not in society really. I didn't transition to become a woman, to become a hermit. I thought when I transitioned I'd be so happy, I'd be able to join the workforce, people would be understanding and respectful. That may be the case with other transgender women, and I'm not looking for pity, but not for me. I've had a lot of problems once I started to transition. My sisters don't talk to me. I lost a lot of friendships. I lost my employment. I have a hard time even getting a job now, and I'm on disability. And if I took a part-time job, my long-term disability would go away, and it wouldn't make sense because I need to have the long-term, plus it pays out more. The only thing I'm worried about is that that will term out eventually. So these are legitimate worries and concerns I have. And that's why January wasn't a good month for me, even though it was my birthday month. It wasn't. I was going through a lot of financial worries, depression. It was winter time, and I overdosed, hoping to die. But God wants me here still, because a friend stopped by, and he saw me, and he immediately got in touch with 911, and they brought me to the hospital. So I survived that suicide attempt. And I was in the hospital on my birthday. After I left NUMC, I was taken to South Oaks for psychiatric evaluation. And then this past July 28th, I got into this car accident, literally believing I was going to die. Had no control of the car, and I survived. So there must be a reason why I'm here still. And I think part of it is because of my son, I know for a fact. And I think part of it is that my father and mom want me to still do important things in my life. And I think part of it maybe even because I was always hoping to live as a woman. And if I died like that, I would never have the chance. And being that surgery is so close, what would be the point if I died a month before surgery in a horrible car accident? So I do believe there's reasons for everything. And maybe it is meant for me to have the surgery. Even though it's been postponed 5 times already, maybe it's meant to be. And hopefully everything will work out. But I will keep you updated. I'll let you know. And I do hope things will get better. Okay. Thank you. I apologize for the noise interference before. I love my son. I would never hurt him. But sometimes he gets really animated and screams, and I don't know how to deal with that sometimes. But I love my son. I wish there was more I could do for him. And I think the best thing is to put him in a group home, even though it's tearing me apart emotionally. Because I had all these dreams for my son. I wanted him to be successful. I wanted him to go to college. I wanted him to make friends and be happy and maybe one day meet a girl. But now that all seems like pipe dream. So it's hard to cope with things like that. And I love my son and I feel for him. Because I was very shy too growing up. I was awkward. I had trouble dealing with people. But I'm lucky too now because I have a really good friend who's transgender, female to male, and he's been a godsend. He's really cares about me, and I care about him. And he's always been there for me, even though we lost touch for a long time. We always managed to come back, and he's got me into this Queens LGBT center where we do karaoke. And I really wasn't a big fan of karaoke. In fact, I was very embarrassed. And the first time they convinced me to go up because I really didn't want to. And now I'm like volunteering to go out. I have my list of songs and I want to do it even though I can't sing, I still like doing it. And I'm kind of amazed, especially also with my friend Chase, that they have such beautiful singing voices. And sometimes with Chase, when he sees I'm struggling, he joins in and helps me to get the right beat and tone and sense of the song. So I'm very lucky to have Chase as a friend. And I have other friends too. Some high school friends, my cross-country team friends. high school friends that I text with, they've all been helpful to me, and I'm grateful for that. So I'll see you guys, and I'll keep you up to date. Thank you.